No matter how hard archaeologists try, some ancient sites refuse to give up their secrets. Sites like the Inca ruins that rival even Machu Picchu and the birthplace of Saint Nick himself. Let's jump right in. The Mount of Temptation. The Mount of Temptation looks like it defies gravity. It's a monastery clinging to the face of a stony cliff upon the very mountain where Jesus Christ met the devil. According to the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke, as well as a brief mention in Mark, Jesus Christ was led to the top of a mountain by the Holy Spirit. He was told to fast atop the mountain for 40 days, and 3 times throughout his fasting, Jesus was tempted by the devil to prove himself divine by giving a demonstration of his immense power. One of the times, the devil tempted Jesus with bread because he was so hungry from fasting. Another time, the devil offered to give Jesus all the kingdoms of the world if he would only worship him. Jesus resisted the temptations, and on the devil's 3rd attempt, he gave up. Angels then brought food to Jesus, and his trial was complete. After Christ's temptation, monks and hermits began making a nest out of this mountain in the desert. It's located above the Jordan Valley, just about a mile from the city of Jericho. The monks lived here in natural caves, and they worshipped God in quiet peace. But as time wore on, the place started getting fancier, and by the 4th century, a monastery was built. Nobody knows what the monastery looked like though, because it was abandoned during a Persian invasion in 614 AD. The Monastery of Temptation that's currently clinging to the side of the cliff is a modern recreation. It was rebuilt at the end of the 19th century. Although it's new, it's still fiercely impressive. The monastery looks as if it's growing naturally from the rocks, and within the complex is a cave containing a stone that Jesus Christ allegedly sat upon with his own backside. And now for number 6. But first, I want to give a big shout out to Amber Lee and Z and Ray Ali. Thanks so much for watching and supporting Origins Explained. If you are new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join the family. Chateau Gard. The Holy Land wasn't the only place that boasted impressive fortresses throughout the Crusades. France did too, with the Chateau Gard being one of the most fairy tale-like castles ever constructed on French soil. It's only a ruin today, with its pale stones overlooking the quietly flowing River Seine in Normandy. But once upon a time, this was the unbreakable home of Richard the Lionheart. In 1194, King Richard I of England returned home after fighting in the Third Crusade. Richard was on the front lines during the Siege of Acre in 1191. He was one of the fighters who reclaimed that ancient city for the Crusader Knights. During his absence back home, his younger brother John had gone about stealing his castles, so Richard was forced to embark on a long and tedious process of reclaiming those castles. Most of them yielded without a fight, since Richard was the rightful king. But Nottingham was particularly stubborn. Richard was forced to deploy catapults and fight his way into his own castle. It only took 4 days, but the whole ordeal was still annoying. Then Richard got to work building a new castle. Chateau Gard was constructed in Normandy so that Richard, who was both the King of England and the Duke of Normandy, could protect his lands against King Philip II of France. Richard had agreed not to build the castle, but he did anyway, and it took only 2 years to complete the immense fortification. It was wildly expensive and not particularly worth it in the end. Even with his great castle on the hill overlooking the river, Richard failed to protect his lands. Then he died in 1199 after being shot with an arrow. The wound got infected and he passed away. In the wake of his death, his successor, King John of England, bungled the defense of Normandy, and as a result, Philip's forces took Chateau Gard in 1204 AD. The magnificent building changed hands over the next few centuries. Then, in 1599, King Henry IV of France ordered it to be destroyed. So it was. And now, it's only a sad ruin with the secrets of long-dead kings buried underneath its foundations. Choca. There's a group of ancient ruins in Peru that are even more impressive than the ruins of Machu Picchu. A long and arduous trek through the Peruvian mountains can bring you to a place called Choca. It was here where the Inca made their last legendary stand against the Spanish conquerors. There is no place like this anywhere else in the Andes Mountains. Not only was Choca used as a stronghold, but it was also an artistic innovation that never got the chance to be repeated because the Spanish arrived. The ruins include broken ceremonial halls, chambers where mummies once laid in eternal rest, and vast terraces used for farming. Once upon a time, there were hundreds of buildings here, both residential and commercial. There would have been llamas wandering across the terraces and casually chewing grass. And of course, in traditional Inca style, there were sacrifices in the central plaza. Getting here today is a bit of a nightmare. The route to Choca Gard takes you 10,000 feet up into the mountains. The trail is over 39 miles long and can only be completed by hiking. It takes a few days to reach the top and then get back down again. But what kinds of secrets are hidden in Choca Gard? Because of the remoteness of the site, it's never been excavated. The ruins straddle a ridge high up in the mountains, a place practically inaccessible to excavators. There are collapsed structures completely reclaimed by vegetation, but archaeologists have no idea of the kinds of mysteries buried at the site since nobody has ever started digging. This place was one of the very last bastions where the Inca withstood the relentless assault by the Spanish. After the failed attempt to retake Cusco in 1535, Inca ruler Manco Inca Yupanqui fled to Choca Gard, Acre's temple fortress. In the ancient city of Acre in Israel, there once stood a mighty temple fortress that was used by the legendary Templar Knights. The fortress is gone today, and not even a ruin is left, but it's hardly forgotten. Archaeologists in 1944 discovered a strategic passageway that had been lost for 700 years. This underground tunnel once led beneath Acre's streets to a mighty fortress overlooking the raging sea. In the year 1187 AD, Jerusalem was captured by Muslims under the leadership of Saladin. Up until then, the Kingdom of Jerusalem had held the Holy Land. The kingdom had been established by the Knights of the First Crusade after they conquered Jerusalem in 1099. Then, after almost 200 years of holding the Holy Land, it was lost to the warriors of Islam, and only a handful of outposts remained unconquered. Most of them were isolated crusader fortresses. In 1189, the King of Jerusalem, Guy de Lusignan, gathered all available knights and launched a counterattack. They marched on the city of Acre, ultimately taking it with help from the fighters with the Third Crusade. The history here can be a little confusing. So, to put it as simply as I can, the Holy Land was ruled by crusaders from Europe. Then the Muslims took it, but after that, the European knights managed to retake the fallen city of Acre and turn it into their base of operations. Acre then became the new capital of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. The Knights Templar were so important to the Crusades that they were given an entire sector of the city. It was cordoned off and they built a massive fortress. Historical records show that the fortress was the biggest and most impenetrable in the whole city. It had walls that were 28 feet and massive towers that were decorated with gilded lions. But unfortunately, the good times didn't last. In April of 1291, the Mamluks out of Egypt took Acre and it fell entirely to the Muslims. The Templar fortress was smashed to the ground and destroyed. On the spot where it once stood is now a modern lighthouse looking over the crashing waves. And of course, the amazing tunnel found hidden underneath. It opened as a tourist attraction in 1999. If you ever find yourself in this ancient city, you can walk the very same path below ground that was once taken by holy knights on their way to their fortress on the sea. The Great Wall of Gorgon. You've heard of the Great Wall of China, but what about the Great Wall of Gorgon? It was once the largest fortification on the planet. It was the most impressive wall ever built by humans. Then it was abandoned for unknown reasons, but according to archaeologists, the secrets of the forgotten wall are buried in the desert of Iran. The Great Wall of Gorgon runs for over 100 miles from the edge of the Caspian Sea to the eastern mountains of Biliku in Iran. Much like the Great Wall of China, this one was created to protect the region from raiding parties. Savage nomads would sweep down from the deserts in the north on horseback and wreak havoc. You could think of them as the Vikings of the desert, attacking settlements at the edge of civilization. They did a lot of pillaging and murdering. So, to keep them out, the Sassanid Empire started stacking up bricks to build a wall. But who were these pesky nomads? Historians believe that they were likely a group known as the White Huns. their attacks became so costly that in the 5th century, the wall was commissioned to keep them out. The exact dates of construction aren't known, and to be 100% honest, nobody even knew this wall existed until 1999. It's so big that archaeologists have barely scratched the surface. It will take years for them to uncover its true history, and that's only if archaeologists actually investigate. Right now, the wall is still largely untouched by researchers. All the experts know for sure is that it was abandoned inexplicably 200 years after it was finished. Maybe it was deserted when it didn't work to keep out the desert raiders. Or maybe something else happened. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. The City of Santa Claus. The ancient city of Patara in Turkey was founded by a demigod and was also the birthplace of Santa Claus. At least that's what the legend tells us. The city was founded by the hero Patarus, who was born of a mortal woman and the sun god Apollo. This would have been around the 5th century BC. However, the city was likely occupied earlier by a Bronze Age culture of unknown origins. Patara, like so many of the places I've shown you today, is currently in a state of deterioration. There are a handful of pillars still standing, as well as the foundations of buildings that have long since been torn down. It's pretty depressing, yet also picturesque, as the ruins are situated in an empty landscape of rolling green hills. But 2,500 years ago, it was one of the most important places in Lycia. There was a massive temple here dedicated to Apollo's oracle. And if you've heard of the Delphi in Greece, where the Oracle of Delphi once told her prophecies, the temple in Patara was very similar. Important people would have come from all over to hear what the seer priestess of Apollo had to say. What exactly happened here with Santa Claus? First, let me jump through history a little bit. Patara was incorporated into Alexander the Great's empire in 333 BC. Then it was taken by the pharaohs of Egypt, and much later, in 43 AD, it was conquered by the Roman Empire. Then in 270 AD, the great Saint Nicholas was said to be born here. Saint Nicholas was a dedicated Christian who performed miracles and began the practice of giving gifts. He became a saint, and through the centuries he morphed into a jolly old guy with a beard living at the North Pole with a bunch of elves and reindeer. In reality though, Saint Nicholas was born in this lost Turkish ruin. The Armenian Stonehenge. For thousands of years, the misty valleys of the South Caucasus were home to early people. When they weren't clubbing people over the head or making hooting noises, they were building. And one of the greatest marvels of the ancient world is right here in Armenia, a place known casually as the Armenian Stonehenge. This is the most mysterious place on today's list by a mile. The epic stone circle is located within a region that's seen kingdoms rise and fall. The region is currently in the south of Armenia, where the world's oldest shoe was found at a nearby cave. The remnants of ancient cities have been discovered sticking out from the desert sand, and the oldest winemaking facility on the planet was found just a short distance away. This region is extremely old and has a very rich history. There are over 220 megalithic stones within the larger complex of the Armenian Stonehenge. Ever since it was discovered in the 1930s, archaeologists have had conflicting ideas about its purpose. The initial idea was that the stone circle was used for holding animals. That's highly unlikely though. In the 1950s, burial chambers from over 3,000 years ago were found. Then, in the 1980s, scientists started thinking that the stones were used for stargazing. This was likely an ancient telescope, an early astronomical observatory. More recently, radiophysicist Paris Hironi performed a series of studies on the megalithic stones. He found that the site dates to 7,500 years ago. He claims that it's far older than Stonehenge in Britain. It's a shocking notion, especially since other scientists argue against it. German researchers from the University of Munich dismissed all Hironi's claims. They also dismissed the idea that it was used as an observatory, and instead they claimed it was nothing but a necropolis. The German scientists also dated the monuments to only 4,000 years old, making it a lot younger than Stonehenge. As you can see, there's some serious discrepancy about the Armenian Stonehenge. Mainstream scientists don't even want to call it that. They refer to it only as Zorat's Terror. Whatever the truth might be, it's undoubtedly hidden under the ground and locked in the stones carved by the ancient people. Nobody knows who built the megaliths, and nobody can agree if they were part of an observatory or if they were just boring grave markers. They may have also been part of a ritual landscape in which early neo-pagans celebrated the solstice. delicious. What do you think of these epic places? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon. Bye!